A pleasant morning, everyone. Today, let's talk about narrative research. What is the focus and definition of narrative research? Narrative might be the phenomenon being studied, such as a narrative of illness, or it might be the method used in a study, such as the procedures of analyzing stories told. Chase, 2005, Clandinin and Connolly, 2000, Pinniga and Daines, 2007. As a method, it begins with the experiences as expressed in lived and told stories of individuals. According to Clandinin, 2013, it makes the case for the need for attending to the context in which the narrative is embedded, advising, the focus of narrative inquiry is not only valorizing individuals' experience but is also an exploration of the social, cultural, familial, linguistic, and institutional narratives within which individuals' experiences were, and are, constituted, shaped, expressed, and enacted. As stated by Czarniawska, 2004, defines it here as a specific type of qualitative design in which narrative is understood as a spoken or written text giving an account of an event or action or series of events or actions, chronologically connected. Let's proceed to the origin and background influences of narrative research. Narrative research originated from literature, history, anthropology, sociology, sociolinguistics, and education, yet different fields of study have adopted their own approaches by Chase, 2005. We find a postmodern organizational orientation in Czarniawska, 2004, a human developmental perspective in Diuda and Lightfoot, 2004. Sociological approaches in Cortazzi, 1993, and Reisman, 1993, 2008, and quantitative, example, statistical stories in event history modeling, and qualitative approaches in Elliott, 2005. Interdisciplinary efforts at narrative research have also been encouraged by the Narrative Study of Lives annual series that began in 1993, for example, Josselson and Lieblich, 1993, the Handbook of Narrative Inquiry of Clandinin, 2007, and the journal Narrative Inquiry. What are the defining features of narrative research? Narrative researchers collect stories from individuals, and documents, and group conversations about individuals' lived and told experiences. Also, narrative stories tell of individual experiences, and they may shed light on the identities of individuals and how they see themselves. Narrative stories occur within specific places or situations. Narrative stories are gathered through many different forms of data, and narrative stories are analyzed using varied strategies. Narrative stories often are heard and shaped by the researchers into a chronology, although they may not be told that way by the participants. Narrative stories often contain turning points by Denzin, 1989, or specific tensions or transitions or interruptions that are highlighted by the researchers in the telling of the stories. What are the various forms of narrative research? We have here the types of narratives. First, the biographical study is a form of narrative study in which the researcher writes and records the experiences of another person's life. Next is the autoethnography is written and recorded by the individuals who are the subject of the study by Ellis, 2004, Muncie, 2010. They contain the personal story of the author as well as the larger cultural meaning for the individual's story. A life history portrays an individual's entire life, while a personal experience story is a narrative study of an individual's personal experience found in single or multiple episodes, private situations, or communal folklore by Denzin, 1989. An oral history consists of gathering personal reflections of events and their causes and effects from one individual or several individuals by Plummer, 1983. What are the procedures for conducting narrative research? Narrative researchers tell stories of individuals' experiences. First is to determine if the research problem or question best fits narrative research. Second, select one or more individuals who have stories or life experiences to tell, and spend considerable time with them gathering their stories through multiple types of information. Third is to consider how the collection of the data and their recording can take different shapes. Next, embed information about the context of these stories into data collection, analysis, and writing. Next, analyze the participants' stories using the process of reorganizing the stories into some general type of framework called restoring. Next, embed a collaborative approach in the collection and telling of stories. And lastly, present the narrative in written form. What are the challenges and emerging directions are associated in narrative research? First, collect extensive information about the participants and have a clear understanding of their context. Second, uncover the multilayered context of individuals' life. Third, researchers' reflection about their own personal and political background. Next, power relations are principal concern in narrative inquiry. Next, multiple issues arise in collecting, analyzing, and telling individual stories. Also, visual narrative inquiry attaining more complex understanding. And bridges need to be considered with established visual-based methodologies. Let's proceed to grounded theory. What is grounded theory approach in research? The grounded theory approach is a qualitative research methodology that attempts to unravel the meanings of people's interactions, social actions, and experiences. In other words, these explanations are grounded in the participants' own interpretations or explanations. Qualitative research using grounded theory was regarded as being groundbreaking upon its introduction. By using the inductive methodology, data, such as interviews and observations, and on rare occasions, historical data, archival data, and more, could be analyzed as they are being collected. And they sought to move away from the dominant practice in the 1950s and 60s of starting with a theoretical framework which needed to be verified. They turned that practice on its head by starting with the data to develop theory. Let's go back to the past and discover the origins of grounded theory research. Grounded theory, according to Barney Glaser and Anselm Strauss in 1967 in their book entitled The Discovery of Grounded Theory in 1967. Barney Glaser and Anselm Strauss is a U.S. sociologist who address an important research problem in their work. The problem was empirical social science was dominated by the quantitative paradigm. Researchers were trained solely to test the existing major sociological theories. However, this posed a problem because why assume that these theories could explain everything? Wouldn't it be more appropriate to also develop new theories? In their book, they propose a return to qualitative data and systematically derive new theories based on the behavior of individuals and groups. Fundamental Ideas of Glaser and Strauss 1967. The goal of grounded theory is to develop new theories. Research without theoretical assumptions when they start their research. Analysis and conceptualization through constant comparison. What this basically means is that whenever you come up with a new code or category from your data, you compare data with all existing concepts and constructs, compare it to the constructs and concepts you already developed before, and decides whether it enriches the existing codes or categories or better off developing a new one. New data are selected through theoretical sampling. Researchers decide how and where the next sample will be drawn for analytical reasons. Example: in interview. First, analyze first interviews. Second, build codes and categories. Third, based on theory that you've derived, you choose who to talk to the next interview partner to best inform your theory and progress, so to speak. The basic principles of grounded theory remains the same, as conceived by Glaser and Strauss in 1967 even today. In addition to theory, a grounded theory project can also result in a model or rich description. All those three outcomes are accepted in the literature and have their own value. In theory we have descriptions, definitions of variables, and their relationships, justifications for these relationships, and theory's boundaries. In model we have definitions of abstract variables and their relationships. And lastly, rich description. Description of an empirical observation without abstraction to a theoretical level. Since Glaser and Strauss first described grounded theory, a lot has happened. Nowadays there are several variations and different opinions on how grounded theory should be conducted. The fact that so many versions of grounded theory exist today is mainly related to two individuals, Glaser and Strauss themselves. The dispute between Glaser and Strauss. The two authors grew significantly apart over time. This was mainly due to their different ideas on how to conduct grounded theory approach. In 1978, Glaser published another book alone, introducing new ideas on how to facilitate the inductive development of categories. His interpretation of grounded theory was that the process of coding should take place freely and without predefined structure from existing theory as possible. In 1990, his old friend Strauss published a book with Juliet Corbin because their students struggled the open approach from the 1967 book. The two developed quite clear rules on how coding should be done following open, axial, selective, and processual coding techniques. This development did not sit well with Glaser, and the dispute over the identity of grounded theory erupted. The reason for this was that the approach, according to Strauss and Corbin, was easier to implement, but it disregarded the idea of free and unrestricted coding. Glaser recommended only 3 steps: open, selective, and theoretical coding. In 1998, Strauss and Corbin published another book where they came a bit closer to the old idea of grounded theory. However, this did not help to settle the dispute. Since then, the literature roughly distinguishes between the Glaserian and Straussian approaches. The main difference of two approaches are the coding techniques that already mentioned. For Glaser, the way to go is open, selective, and theoretical coding, while Strauss and Corbin, in contrast, open coding, axial coding, and selective coding. The continuation of this report will be discussed by my groupmates. This concludes my report. Thank you and God bless.